Commissioner Lyons?
Here.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Here.
Commissioner White? Here. Commissioner Orthwein? Here. Let the record show that Mr. Dunham, our town manager, is present, as is Edward Mazzaro, who is our staff attorney, and Chief Allen, who is our police chief, and myself.
Very good. We've been provided with the minutes from the special meeting and the shade meeting of December 10th, 2018, the special meeting of December 12th, 2018, and the regular meeting of December 14th, December 14th, 2018. Are there any changes, corrections, additions, or comments? I have one. On Wednesday, December 12th at 8:30 a.m. special meeting. Section 3, paragraph 3, word is not accounts, it's counts. So we were talking about 5 cases and a number of counts being dismissed. Any others? If not, is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes with one correction.
Second?
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein?
Yes.
Mayor Word?
Yes. Rita, any changes to the agenda?
I have none.
Okay, neither do I. Our next meeting will be February 8th at 9 a.m. for anyone who wishes to attend. Let's move on to communication from the public. We're pleased to have Commissioner Robert Weinroth here today. Very nice of him to come and visit us.
Thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor, members of the Commission. It's my pleasure to be here. Again, my name is Robert Weinroth. I'm your newly elected County Commissioner for District 4. It's my pleasure to come down here and say hello to you. The fact is that I've been on a commission like yours. I was in the city of Boca Raton for 4 years. So I certainly understand the responsibilities you have, and I want you to know that I understand home rule, and whereas when we sit here, want to make sure the state isn't bothering us, I can assure you that the county will not be bothering you unless you ask for us to come in and help you with something. I wanted to introduce my assistant, one of my legislative aides, John Carter. John has joined my staff. Lucia Bonavita, who was on Stephen's staff, has remained. Freddie has retired, and I have a third member of the staff. Her name is Alexandra Ayala. She is in the Delray office. As you know, I have 2 offices, one in Delray and one in West Palm Beach. The purpose for today is really just to introduce myself and let you know that I'm there to help you if there's anything that I can do. The county, of course, is always there to lend a helping hand. And so with that, I don't want to take too much of your time today. It was just a nice opportunity to stop by, enjoy your town, and introduce myself.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate you coming in to see us and speak with us. It's nice to put a face with a name, as I said earlier. And we wish you best of luck on the commission. And I'm heartened, as we all are, to hear your past experience in Boca and the desire to protect home rule, which is very important to us.
Absolutely, Mayor. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to speak? Sure. Thank you. Any other public comment? If not, let's move on to the public hearing. First of all, any ex parte communications by the commissioners?
None.
Very good.
For the record, the property we're going to be looking at, 3400 Polo Drive. I walk by it all the time, very familiar with it. Well, I haven't spoken to anybody about it. I just wanted to alert you.
Okay. Walk by yourself, did you?
I guess the answer is nobody will walk with me.
Anyone who is going to be testifying in connection with the application, please stand and raise your hands and be sworn.
You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, this is an application for development approval on 3400 Polo Drive. I guess, Carlos?
morning. I am Carlos Linares with Randall Stoft Architects. Project, we are submitting 3400 Polo Drive, Mr. and Mrs. Clark residence. It's a Bermuda style architecture, two-story, single-family residence, three-car garage. I'm sorry, just 1 second. We are also proposing for a maximum FAR of 74, maximum permitted is 7410. We are proposing for a 7406 is our maximum FAR for this particular project. Project obviously, if we could go through the floor plan, it's a three-car garage, guest bedroom downstairs, dining, living, kitchen, and club room all downstairs. We also have an outdoor pavilion towards the back, facing the water, also facing the pool. All the bedrooms, or the remaining part of the bedrooms are upstairs, as well as the master bedroom. Overlooking the pool is the master bedroom with a small uncovered terrace. There is a small balcony out towards the front as well, out of one of the bedrooms. That's pretty much the scope of all the floor plans. Elevation-wise, as I mentioned before, it is a Bermuda style home. We've been able to maintain all the eave heights as per the guidelines. First eave height, we are proposing for that to be a 9'9". Second floor eave height, we are proposing for that to be at 21 feet. So we are maintaining the heights required by the town. Originally, we had submitted, and I'm not sure whether you guys still have a rendering of the project, but when we originally submitted this project, we were submitting with a wide tile. Since we submitted, our client decided to go with a darker tile, which I believe you guys should have a copy of that as well, with a dark gray tile.
Yeah, I mean, the gray, that one that you brought in is different than the one that was.
Yeah, I'll get to that in a little bit. So, like I said, when we originally submitted, it was a white tile, is what we're submitting. At a later point, the client decided to go with the gray. At the ARB meeting, I brought in a tile, which Greg pointed out that it was way too dark for that to be approved. So he had also asked me to bring a tile that would be approved by, this is not the tile, this is a lighter tile that we, from what we submitted at ARB. And this is the gray tile that we've used in other homes. So this is what we're proposing currently for the home.
Just to clarify here, the tile that was at ARPP was called gray charcoal, rather than black, which is what it was. And so the code does not allow black.
Does that one match what we've approved previously? That one there, it looks pretty
It's hard
dark.
to tell.
It looks really dark.
It looks dark to me in the artificial light.
You mean on other houses?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Well, I could leave this with you guys. I could also bring in photos of the other projects that we've also built.
In town?
In town,
Western?
yeah.
And it has
mhm.
that roof?
Correct. The other one that I brought in, it was just like Greg said, it was very dark, it's pretty much black.
Yes.
And that's what he pointed out to us, that, as per the code, that will not be approved.
So that
So
tile's in this town already?
This is a tile that we've utilized before.
Is that the one that you have on? the
Yeah,
current,
Yeah, this
Clark
is,
house?
this is pretty much it.
Or pretty much, or?
This is it, I'm sorry, this is it.
That's the one on the Clark house now?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Looks darker, but maybe it is.
We're inside too, there's no sunlight
Yeah, there's
on it.
natural
Yeah,
light.
no, yeah.
There's no natural light on it.
Well, like I said, I could leave this with you guys and,
Well, it's a gray, it's a gray through and through, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, and the code does allow for that, for the, Bermuda style.
Right.
And obviously, you know, typically for our clients, we always do a mock-up prior to the installation at the roof as well. So they are very aware of a bigger sample, a bigger mock-up before it goes up.
It lightens up the closer you get to the door over there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you put it on the lawn out there, it'll be a totally different color.
And look, that's the one on the roof now, you can definitely see it, it's
Yeah.
there.
And like I said, the rendering that we had proposed, it looks a little brownish, maybe because of the ink or something like that. I'm not sure whether you guys have.
No, I
Yeah,
don't,
we don't have, what color is the house?
One second. I had brought in, I guess, for the ARB. This one I brought the renderings, but I do have additional copies. That I could distribute at the end.
Greg's getting,
Okay.
he had mine.
Square footage has been verified, the square footage, the pool house.
I'm sorry, the square footage of what, I'm sorry?
Has been verified, the pool house, the last test, it was a little larger than it was supposed to be.
Oh.
Never mind, has it all been verified? Rita knows what I'm talking about, okay.
We also have the landscape architect here as well, present, that, any questions on the landscape as well. She's also here present.
Any questions for Carlos on the design of the home, the change in the roof tile?
I have, one fundamental question. This house, you're proposing, it looks quite similar to the present Clark house?
We started with the footprint, as such, with the same, sort of the same flow, as what they originally have right now. It did deviate, quite a bit from that. Obviously, the square footage has also decreased due to regulations. May I ask also now the regulation that the second floor has to be smaller than the first floor. So obviously that was also modified quite a bit. I believe it went from 75% down to 50% is what is required now. There's also a stepping back or setback on the second floor that is also required. That also brought in the massing much further in on onto the second floor. So massing wise, obviously all of that started being tweaked, going through the regulations. But to your question, we started with the same concept, but it's been deviated from that, yes.
So, would you say that, according to the code, that there is an excessive similarity between the two houses? Have you looked at that section?
Yes, yeah, correct. Obviously, there's way different type of details. I am not sure if there's a specific item that you were thinking about. I mean, obviously, the locations of rooms and stuff like that inside sort of created the massing. But massing-wise is not the same anymore. Details have also been quite a bit modified. All the details covers, the only thing is that is very similar to what they have is obviously is the roof. The driveway, they do have a connecting driveway currently. This one is not connecting driveway.
Carlos, I really don't know whether they're identical or very similar or not, but the code's very clear. It speaks to apparently visible identical front to side elevations, and et cetera. And I'm just, so, can you represent that you looked at this and these two houses do not conflict with this section of the code?
I read it at the very beginning when we were designing, and yes, I've gone through that, yes.
I have a question, is this siding that matches the shutter color, is it the gray, dark gray, or black, or whatever it is? It's like dark gray, it's right here, it's at that.
Yes, it does match the shutters, correct.
Okay. Is it like a siding that you're gonna use? Or
It is, it's going to be an accent wall which is going to imitate siding.
I'm not sure that the statement.
Right here.
I don't know.
It's like that, and you're not gonna keep the ficus screen back?
We'd love to, but we're keeping, should I come up, or just,
Whatever, I mean, whenever you want, you couldn't keep it.
yeah, it's, in the root system, and it's gonna be hard to save that once construction starts, and footers are starting to be, the ground's starting to be dug up for footers, and all that construction going on there. Is it my turn? Should I come up?
I have a question on this. In the history, it seems that this project was presented before the ARPB on October 25th, and there was no recommendation at that time. Was it withdrawn? Was the application withdrawn at that time? Or was there a problem?
So what happened was that we were asking for the special exception for open space. You're able to apply for additional FAR square footage of open space only. At that point, ARPB board felt that the houses are getting too big, and I believe we had somebody from the public also speak out about that, in which I believe it was the neighbor to the right, to the north. So therefore, they asked us to look into that. We were asking for 166 square feet additional to the FAR. At the very beginning, I contemplated on just getting rid of that whole outdoor pavilion, but obviously, as you all know, outdoor living is very important to everybody in Florida. So the client did not want to go for that. So we ended up reducing garages, reducing bedrooms in order to be able to bring it back down to not be asking for that special exception on open space. So we took it out from a air-conditioned space, basically. And it just took us a little bit of time to be able to come back to something that the clients would be comfortable with. So we were able to resubmit and comply with the FAR and not ask for the special exception.
So, Commissioner White, what happened is, you can see there in the history that there were no recommendations. The ARPD just decided because of this, they said, we're not gonna vote on anything today, and we'll do that at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry, I don't quite get that, excuse me.
Just procedurally, we want to wait until the presentation of the applicant is done, and then we can, is that what you're asking?
No, I think he's asking.
No, but there's no recommendations in the ARPB.
Well, no, what they did was they recommended that it come back at the next meeting.
They deferred it to the next
Right.
meeting, and then they voted on it in December, and
Okay,
voted to approve.
They didn't have a meeting in
okay,
November.
okay, got it. I'm sorry, Cut.
I just wondered if there is a timeline for when the construction would be completed. There's been quite a lengthy building timeline for some of the properties on Polo Drive that just drives the neighbors crazy.
We'll talk about that actually later in the meeting.
Here in
Oh,
a
all
second.
right.
That's on the agenda.
Right.
Good question, though.
But yes, that's been a concern of many people, so.
Well, the bigger the houses get, it just seems to take
That-
longer,
exactly.
and it's,
Exactly.
So we have a snapshot of the other house on somebody's phone or something? I mean, I know it in my mind,
What,
but,
you mean the other Clark house?
yeah.
Yeah, that's concerning, I have to say, this concern of similarity, both in the roof tile and the house design.
The front elevation's quite similar, I mean, maybe you study, but you drive by, it's gonna look like they're pairs,
But I
in
know-
my mind. I think, but, you know, we don't have a comparison.
I know the balcony here and whatnot is probably different.
Different, that is different.
You know, and the massing is a little bit different with the roof line. and
I think the
whatnot.
color
It's
is-
probably just the color palette.
Yeah.
Rita, do you think there might be a color rendering in the file from?
It's on the Laserfish, but those are so tiny, you can't.
On the
Yeah, hard to see
alternative,
'em.
we can,
Let's push it to the next meeting, and have it presented with comparison. It seems to be a legitimate concern,
As far as the colors,
the houses.
The design of the house.
Carlos, respectfully, I'm sort of very analytical, so I apologize for that. But the code is, look at the code and see what the code says, not what I say, what the code says. And see if it's similar or not. If it isn't, great. If it is, then we have to adjust it.
yeah, like I said, we went through that at the beginning of the design aspect of it, and I do not recall every element on the description, but we could definitely do that.
I mean, it may just,
Definitely point out all the differences between the homes.
it may just be a color palette issue. You know, house is 3,000 square feet smaller, that's this and that, you know, but we're not quite in the exact position to make a determination, or to actually assess it with you on the record.
I mean, would it be any better if we went back to the original proposed white roof? I mean, they were not necessarily saying, well, that's what we want, you know, that might have been one of the items that we studied at the very beginning, and that's what we proposed to the town, to go with the white roof. And you can take a look at this. This was the original rendering that we submitted. I may not have enough copies for everybody, but this was the original. This was the original rendering that we had brought in, and submitted the colors for that. But, like I said, the client was the one that was sort of driving that color of the roof.
I mean,
I think this is a lot better, because, I agree with Tom, it's the color.
I think 78% of this is the palette.
So,
I mean, we
so,
can't-
you know,
we
it
don't
may
want
be
every
something
house
that
on the
we
street
didn't go
same
back
color.
and revisit once they asked us to go with the gray tile. Obviously, with the gray tile, a lot of the other colors had to sort of blend in with that as well, so
I mean, I'm not-
maybe we didn't go back to that.
I mean, I'm not a designer, so we're not telling you, no great roof. You can have a great roof, but I think it's the palette is a large part of this. I'm not gonna tell you what colors they want or anything like that, but,
Well, I mean, it brings in this new section of the code that we had
yeah,
considered.
we also don't want every house painted white.
Right.
We have a lot of white
So,
houses.
I mean, I would be okay with going back to the white roof. I mean, that's what we originally proposed to the town,
With the
and it was,
lighter shutters like this?
yeah,
Are
And
they light gray, is that?
it's like a taupey, it's a taupey color.
Taupey, and the
Mhm.
house is sort of a light taupey.
Correct, it's a lighter, like an off-white almost.
Yeah, I mean, we understand that
with-
the palette is probably not pink from our options here. So, I mean, we get it.
So we could definitely go back to that, like I said, that's what we originally proposed. And it was driven by the client, but we didn't go back to the code and, double check the colors, because, obviously that's.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. I don't want to spend too much more time on it. But front entrance, I mean, they reference apparently visible, identical front or side elevations, substantially identical size and arrangement of either doors. Like the front entrance looks very similar. Entrances are often going to be similar, I suppose. There's a balcony over the front entrance. Is that true of the existing house?
I don't recall. I don't recall. I don't think it is, but I don't recall. Sorry.
Because they clearly, as I'm looking at the front elevation to the right, as Mr. Stanley noted, there's a step back. I don't think that's there on the existing house, so that's clearly a difference.
I just took the photos today, I did the landscaping with that one as well.
I think the driveway is very similar to
Yeah,
what
so
you're
it's-
saying. I'm getting back to your tree in the
No, it's-
middle,
it's-
that big ficus
the
tree.
windows are different.
And putting in a circular driveway
Yeah.
would give it a whole different,
comes
I'm not
out.
telling you what to do either. Would give it a whole different look. Do you know what I'm saying?
The front's kind of,
They're still.
Okay. I'm going on to the landscaping to try to make it look different.
well, actually, that is a subject I'd like to address, because I think that might, in a comprehensive way, address the building, it being similar, because the landscaping is gonna make it look that much more similar. Yeah, we'll get it. I don't know whether others wanna see this.
Yeah, not that I drive by it every day. You walk by everything I drive by.
Yeah, right, the landscaping draws your eye to the similarity between
But there is a big, big ficus tree in front right now.
Yes.
You got your pillars, you got your palm tree.
A circular drive.
Elevation is
Comments.
different, and it's got a big setback.
Yeah.
I think it's the palette is really what's driving this. Cars you can point out probably about 8 differences with the second story elevation versus the existing house.
Yeah, like I said, the massing took a
Yeah, it's different,
totally
yeah, I mean, the
different.
massing is
different,
it's good, I'm
um,
not disagreeing with you on
I
that.
agree with that, I'm glad we had the picture, that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
So it sounds like if you go back to the original color
Yeah, it makes it.
of the shutters and the roof, and we'll address the landscaping, to try to make that.
This was the original
Yes.
palette.
Or whatever they wanna do, as long as it's, not tan or charcoal.
Would you like to try that?
Yeah, thank you very much, that was very helpful.
I hope you had fun, my son. Sorry to make you walk so much.
That's okay.
So other comments on this?
You know,
issue?
To go back to Joan's comment on the, and someone said it's similar to siding,
The black.
the black. Aren't there something in the code that you can't have siding? You can't have siding as a material, as a finishing material?
So,
I think they may be talking about like vinyl siding or something like that.
That's wood, right? What is
Yeah.
that?
Mhm.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
I understand code doesn't allow vinyl siding. Right?
Is
Well,
that gonna be a hardy application?
party board.
Most likely.
Yeah,
Most likely, it's supposed to imitate wood.
yeah.
But you know,
Yeah.
obviously wood will
No, it's
be
not.
maintenance issue. But hardy's, I mean, you can't tell. You can never
We,
tell.
You get it in the color usually.
I think the code is we don't,
I'm sorry,
You get the party board in colors, you don't even have to paint it, do you?
That is correct. That is correct.
The way we can address this.
You could get even in stains now. So,
Yeah.
I like the wood.
Which are very
Maintenance free.
maintenance free.
it's totally.
another element.
Yeah. Um,
Does the window to the, on the left side has a shutter on it, Ken, is just blocked by the front entrance?
Correct.
Yeah, but there are shutters on both sides there, that window, both windows.
Yes, so this is the elevation. So this is the window that you're pointing out, so correct.
Right, to the,
Yeah.
to the first window, to the right of the entry feature, on this rendering, it shows no shutter on that, but I think it's just the angle.
Correct.
Girls, what's the color of the initial submission? Let's call that a taupe.
There you go. Yeah, that's what this
Right.
sheet here.
Let's see if I have the original colors submitted.
Like a white roof.
This has got some dimensions to it.
Well, where's the color of the house?
Stucco walls.
Modern white.
Yeah, showing whites.
Modern white. I thought it was a taupe. Maybe that's the,
That's what they-
that's the shutters. Anyways, what would you describe as the color of the painted wall and
The painted wall is like an off-white.
And the present house is pretty white, correct?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
and the color of the shutters and that wood trim?
It's a taupe color, but I don't have a record of what we submitted, I'm sorry.
But it was on the original submission.
Yes.
That's how we would define
This
it.
is it here.
Yes, and it does not have the stucco.
Stucco walls is called a modern white, which looks like a pretty deep off-white.
Yes, so it's,
Just to double check that. That's your October 2nd spec sheet.
so it's a modern white. The outriggers are, obviously it's a pure white. And then the shutters are sort of like a taupey, but it's supposed to be like this is the stain right here. It's a stain, but right there, obviously you're not gonna see the veining at
Right,
that
okay.
scale.
Got it. Yeah, you don't see that on the distant shot. All right, so if we go back to the original specifications dated October 2nd, 2018, which is a modern white walls, white roof tile, and Cape Cod gray stain shutters. Does that make this application acceptable?
A lot better, I think so, I mean, I think it's, I think it's the color, and I think the landscaping too.
Yeah, we
We
haven't
could do
gotten there
something.
Just want to be able to define it for the record.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, from Polo, your front elevation, your second story massing is completely different.
So it's acceptable to go back to the original color?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what we had agreed with the client, and, they had second thoughts. Obviously, they love their house so much that they live in currently now, they wanted that roof. But, we didn't go back and double check the code.
Any other questions or comments on the
The
house?
stripe, the stripe awning, is that fabric?
Yes, yes it is.
If not, let's hear about the landscape.
I'm doing this about 30 years and I still get nervous. So,
Don't be nervous.
I do.
All fronts.
Heart starts pounding.
Let me just take this. Which one is it?
Okay, this journey, landscape journey, started with meeting with the clients and walking the property and just enjoying all the landscaping that's there, even though it was very, very tropical, was kind of all most of the really nice lushy tropical shrubbery was right around here, right where the house has gotta go. And during the conversation and the walk through the property, the clients really loved the feel of that. And so what we decided to do was to try to salvage the big natives that are here, and there's one right here, a lot of the stuff here, and over in this area, we pretty much kept all the palm trees that were there. We're gonna redo with the lower, the lower landscaping, put all new plant material in. But pretty much this whole area, the perimeters, we're keeping everything that's there. And we're just gonna do some border material, and some lower color, and some tropical accents, and just keep that nice and clean, but very private. So this is what it's gonna look like on both, pretty much, except for a couple of missing teeth along the way that we're gonna add and fill in. It's pretty full and beautiful already with areca palms on both sides of the property from the neighbors. It's pretty lush. So what we're gonna do is try to get some of the material that's really hard to transplant from this area and here into areas that are kind of symmetrical on the house, and so it's a little more formal right here from the front, towards the front entrance and this parking court, and then it gets more gentle and soft, and I like to call the design tailored tropical, for lack of a better term. This is a lot different than the existing house because we've punctuated the corners with multi-stem tropical palms that will stay in proportion with the two-story, the volume of the second floor. The plants that I chose will stay in proportion to the architecture over time. So while I think that their present house is a little more formal with clipped, like topiary forms on the corners of the house, this is gonna have a lot more of a tropical element. This right here is a triple palm here to soften the corners. We've got Sylvester palms here, and here. Here and here. This one is actually a Corotis palm that's gonna stay in the front, which is pretty substantial. We're gonna use a crane or whatever it takes, and I think it's like, I use the word heroics because that particular palm, the Corotis palm, is a Florida native, but it's done in very many trunks and a lot of roots, individual roots, and it all grows together, but once you lift it out of the ground, it all comes apart. But with that said, we're still gonna make the effort to salvage everything from the back here, and we're using it along the front and on the sides of the property. I think we're over here, we're just adding new low material, cleaning this up a little bit, but we pretty much have a lot of the landscaping. We're supposed to block the view of the neighbor's houses, windows, second floors, all that. with privacy, and that's, a lot of it is already there. So we're in good shape there. Open lawn, a lot of multi-palm shading here. And since this is a really nice outdoor room for them, afternoons is probably when they're gonna use it the most. And I love to use just coconut palms and grass. It's just a great tropical, you don't have to go anywhere. I wanted them to feel like they're on vacation. So I strategically placed them, and it may seem a little similar to the other house, but I think that the coconut palm has such a big head, and it's a more casual look than Sylvester palms, that this will provide afternoon shade for them when the sun is starting to set in the west. They can actually use this space and this little microclimate created because of the shady space that's created here from the fronds. This is gonna be a very usable shady space where the rest of it's kind of more in the sun. You know, the back of the house is in the sun. We got a couple of nice big Sylvester palms punctuating their two very, very big windows that take you, you know, when you enter the front door, you see this whole view out to the water. So that just accents like the bookends for the windows, just the tropical bookends. The shrubbery is still around the house in layers is still gonna be low and manicured, but I definitely have, to make it different, because we didn't want it to be the same as the other house, I have bunches of, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Queen Emma, banana leaf kind of plants, you know, large shrubs, that have a really, really tropical flavor to them. I've got some rubellini palms here. We've actually got some palms flanking the front door. You looked at the picture, there was no palms greening up the second floor. So these two palms were double trunks, slender trunks like a V, you know, on both sides of the door. And at the top, a nice spray of green, leafy, you know, compact palms. But the front door is really gonna look a lot different just because of this element here that I softened that volume. Where the other house, there's nothing there, you know, towards the second floor, that element, green space up high. Then they have a nice little courtyard that we did a little more zen with pebbles and some white bird of paradise, so that when they're looking out all of these windows, it's very, very tropical. There's a nice little space for a sculptural feature out those windows. And just a lot of really beautiful green lawn. It's a very, very Palm Beach look. And I absolutely love Gulfstream, so in my mind, I felt like my drive was to keep the landscaping in keeping with this community and how it looks. And it's, like I call it, tailored tropical. There's a lot of tailored, but it's got tropical elements in the background, and it's all bordered by, you know, beautiful low ground covers. And this house is gonna be a little more tropical than the other one, but it's lovely. We got white standard bougainvilleas up front, where the other one had more sculptural trees that are manicured. It's a little softer, and then we've got some nice big small scale trees here, 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 and here. So it's gonna be different. It's not gonna be cookie cutter like the other house at all. And so in the back, I mean, here's so this is what I'm trying to explain. Here are the double palms flanking the front door on both sides, and then we also have the palms on the ends, and with the tropical material underneath. I didn't want to put a bunch of stuff here because I think that the banding under the windows is pretty nice. So we're going to use material that they can keep manicured down below the bands of the windows so that they don't start covering them. And then it softens up over here under these windows. So there's a lot of softness going on and greenery up front along the house. And then here's more of the view from the road. This includes what's up against the house in the lighter colors, and then in the road as you're passing by forward. I'm sorry, it's not bougainvillea. It's going to be a bridal bouquet which blooms white flowers.
I guess that's somewhat different from what is on a computer drawing.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
I think that he generated that.
Okay. 'Cause that's
before
very
we
open.
even got into the nuts and bolts.
That's my problem with water homes, is that they get the special exception that pushes them back from the water, which brings them closer to the main road. And without significant screening, these two-story homes loom over Polo Drive particularly. We've seen it time and time again. That's my problem with this.
The beauty of the plant material that I chose, because I know the code, and in doing the first home for the Clarks, we had to buffer the view of the house from the road, and I think we accomplished that pretty nicely there. But here, it's gonna be the same thing, so this tree is the same, and it can be manicured as large as required, or as tight as required. So with small scale trees, you have the opportunity to stop them where you want them. And they want the privacy from the road too. So they're gonna allow this to grow in until it comes to a point where this is manageable, we have the privacy that we want, and now we're gonna have a conversation with our maintenance crews and have them maintained here, you know, where they need to go. So, you know, everything goes in. This definitely will provide a lot of privacy. I wanted you still to be able to see the house, but these bridal bouquet, they get as girthy as you wanna trim them and keep them, and it's better to let them get bigger because you're not trimming off the flowers. So there will be a lot of buffering from the road along the edge. And the hedges can be kept as high as necessary too, so. There's a big deviation from your
I have a few
house.
comments. One, I think it's a great start. And certainly, I was a little discouraged by this elevation, but now this is irrelevant. This is the plan.
This is actually,
And I think sincerely, the Clark's made a real effort to kind of soften the house with the vegetation. In terms of the code, you know, it's multi-dimensional, and there's a section in the code about preservation of the natural state. And let me say, what I'm getting at is the ficus tree. It's a prominent trophy tree, in my mind, on Polo Drive. And the code states that to the extent possible, practical, I think it is, we should preserve the, let me be more specific and read it to you. The landscape shall, this is a preservation of natural conditions. This is part of the site plan section. The landscape shall be preserved in its natural state to the degree practical by minimizing tree and soil removal and by other appropriate site planning techniques. Polo Drive is represented by numerous large ficus trees as you go down. My property in particular is, people walk by and say, well, that's a cool tree. And it really defines, in my opinion, the house, but also defines the street of Polo. And are we all familiar with this ficus tree I'm talking about? Would you, I have a picture of it. Is this, I want to be sure I have it right. I'm sorry to make you move.
you want to know?
Oh, no, but is that the tree that I'm talking about? I want to talk about that tree, and you know.
Yeah, it's got the power lines running, it's like.
Yeah.
They're going away soon.
Power lines are going underground, are they?
They're gone.
They're already
Oh, they are?
underground.
Well,
They're underground, but the lines are not.
Yeah, but
The lines aren't.
the infrastructure.
Oh,
They're underground.
Actually, would you hand it to the chief so he can bring it up, so you don't have to walk over it? As I said, I walk by the property probably every other day, and others who don't live on Polo Drive may not be as familiar with it, so I thought it'd be helpful that people know what tree I'm talking to.
I think it's gonna be right about
Yes, yeah, that's correct. So, the question, and I suppose maybe more than a question from my perspective, what can we do to keep that tree? It really is a prominent tree. I looked at the roots, you know, those are big roots, they're probably under the roadway. It's quite close to the roadway. In fact, maybe some of it might be even in the right of way of the town, I don't know, but it's close. And in terms of preserving the natural state of the property, and to stay in the context of how the town is described within the code, which is, it's lush, and its natural beauty defines the town. Those are the words in the code. What can we do to preserve that tree? Because it's a significant part of Polo Drive, in my opinion. And I won't say any more. I might add that I did review the videos of the two ARPB meetings, and there was some discussion and concern about that tree. And I have spoken to a member of that ARPB. And advised by counsel, I can talk to another body, but I can't talk to any of these members of the commission. And he feels strongly as well.
I apologize, I don't recall discussing that tree in particular.
Oh, no, if you go back to the code, Mr. Roach did reference it. It'd be a shame to take that tree down. But there was no extensive discussion.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I look at the videos is to get a sense of what's the feeling of other people within the town. And so, I personally believe that the code encourages strongly that you preserve the natural state of tree to the extent practical. And there are many properties on Polo Drive which have a circular drive, which would allow you, and in fact that's the way it works right now. I don't know whether it's a circular, it's a half circle.
It is not. It is not a circular drive.
I think the
And what
house
is
has a
it now?
circular drive now.
Their current house.
The
Yes.
current house where this is being built has a circular drive.
Correct. That is also true.
Yeah, it just comes in that way.
I think that they're gonna have to lose their parking court in order to preserve that. And their entrance will not be on, on axes with the front door. This won't be able to be where it is.
Well, could you do
Was
a
that
circular drive?
Is that because the house has been moved forward of where the existing home is now, that is closer to the street?
This dash line right here is the
That's the
front
setback.
setback.
Which is the garage.
So the only thing that's on the front setback is the garage.
Correct.
Garage wall. Everything else is set back further,
Correct.
at least 10 feet.
Well, what about in the quadrant, the north, east, could you put the cars there?
I'm wondering if that tree can be moved, root pruned and moved.
Hey,
Can I see that again? Can you hold up that photo?
Yeah.
I mean, they're gonna have, if they're gonna salvage the Herodes palms, which are just as big. That's massive.
but
That's
it's a
massive.
massive tree. I
They're
don't
gonna need like they're gonna need like a commercial, one of those
Sure.
cranes for, the high-rise kind of crane to come in here and do that. But it could be moved to the south side. I'm thinking it'd probably cost them about $25,000.
I don't know if our roads could handle those cranes. Let's be real.
Huh?
Let's talk about our roads first.
I mean, there's a lot involved in
But
moving
can
it.
you keep
Are
the
you looking
thing where
for
it
a
isn't to
similar
a
specimen?
circular driveway? I think that's an easier solution.
I mean, we could keep it, it's gonna change the architect's, everything, I mean, nothing's impossible to keep, I mean, it's there.
Yeah.
Does it change what they want on their property? Then, I don't know, I mean, we never discussed keeping it because it was just smack dab in front of the front door. Not only that, but it's extremely messy. I mean, it's gonna be a mess every day, someone's gonna have to come out and blow that. I mean, it's a mess,
Well, that's what
it's the nature of the tree.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most prominent trees in Polo Drive is further down south, and it was a house that, was torn down about 2 years ago, and they replaced it with a one-story, which.
It's the Kozo house, and
Which
they
one?
did a search, the Koz.
The Koz
In
house,
fact, the
yes.
person who bought it
And
said she
if you
loved the
drive
tree.
down Polo on the east side, towards the end, before you get to Golfview, there's this very prominent ficus. It's absolutely beautiful. I mean,
I've seen these.
It's the one Rusty Coopy did, it has the 2 garages, it's
Yeah,
very
it's right,
symmetrical.
huge, huge.
Yeah.
yeah, it's,
Bigger.
The clash comes that the people that are building the new houses want to change with new landscaping and sort of change the feel of the town. Whereas what has drawn people to Gulf Street is really the old look of the town with the big trees, and, eventually they're going to be gone because they keep getting taken out with the new construction. But,
Well, that one house they just built, it's a brand new house, do you know which one it was? Rusty Coopy had done it, and they designed it to keep this massive tree in the front. It's very similar to this, and it's beautiful. In fact, the new owners love the tree as much as they love the new house. So I think that's what they're saying is that it's sort of part of Polo Drive. And actually, I think having a tree like that would make it look so much more different than the house they're in. I mean, it's going to give it a whole different feel.
I understand it, because I live in Tropic Isles, and
Oh.
at the end of every street is a banyan,
Yeah,
and they've slowly disappeared.
yeah.
There's a reason why they slowly disappeared, because during the hurricanes, during whatever,
Well, they have to
there's
be
all
trimmed or they
kinds
break
of
off.
reasons
Yeah.
that they're slowly, I mean, just because they're replaced, I love Gulfstream, I would love to live in Gulfstream. I agree, I get it.
it's just.
Over time, it's just,
And over time, that tree will die, and then they can replace it with whatever they
over
want.
time, trees have their life expectancies too, to look good. And then at some point, they become so big that they have to get racked all the time. And I'm sure this tree has too. I mean, it has a nice trunk, but it's been continuously pruned.
Well, I think because of the power lines too, it's been pruned, but that will take care of itself very shortly, right?
I mean, if
well,
Right?
yeah, if they're coming out and they're underground,
Replace these with banyan.
eliminates that
You've
problem.
got these codes, and people tend to just ignore them. I mean, they build what they want, and then they want an exception. They say, oh, well, let's design this house, and, the commission will let us get rid of this tree. We'll just go ahead. When really, the code was there, that it wasn't taken into consideration when the design was made, isn't really our fault,
And listen, I'm not trying to change the code.
No, and I'm.
And it's, everybody has their personal opinion, but I think that they're replacing it with 2 beautiful palms, the way it is. If, they were replacing it with something just as beautiful,
Right.
different.
Right.
So it's,
They just need an exception from the code. The code
yeah,
says
that's,
to.
I'm sorry, what's your first name?
Maureen Smith, I'm Maureen
Maureen,
Smith.
I apologize for
That's
bad
okay.
names. Obviously, everything I look at is through my lenses, I mean, that's clear. But I first go to the code, and the code says, this language isn't here, there's an application to it, it's a preservation of natural conditions. Landscape shall be preserved, I had to put on my glasses again. Shall be preserved in its natural state to the degree practical. And I think it's practical. We're trying to work with you. I think the plan you developed here is great. And I'm really pleased to hear the amount of existing landscaping and trees you're maintaining on the property.
And transplanting.
But the front elevation is a key part of our code, because that's what people enjoy, particularly when they walk, but also when they drive. And that tree is a characteristic that really is, this series of these trees define the character of the town. And every time we eliminate it, and I understand the trees die, I appreciate that. And it may die, and a hurricane may come in and take all our trees, who knows? But this is in our control, and the code speaks to trying to preserve the natural state. And whoever drafted this code had had an intent, and I assume it's to try to keep a tree like that. That's how I interpret it. So,
So is it possible to be able to transplant?
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible.
Because that's changing.
It's gotta be root pruned in advance.
Greg, Trey, what's the issue
We
here?
could.
Have some visions of landscape plan
We could put it here.
as far as improving the rest of it.
Basically, you can rid of that T, it's like right there.
Wait,
Well-
can,
I don't have.
oh, go ahead. Just ask me a question.
And I think we're about there, but for the landscape plan for the front of the home.
Well, I mean, you can, we did this before, actually, with the house at Gulfstream Road in Midland. You know, the Capitol Fence.
Yeah.
And remember, they weren't sure about the color of the shutters and, so we approved it with the exception of them coming back once because they took your recommendations. You didn't want orange, but you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you basically approved the plan, but they needed to come back.
You approved everything subject to approval of the zoning board.
And actually, that didn't, yeah, that actually didn't come back to you, the color went back to ARB.
Yeah.
So,
You know, Maureen,
you could,
just curiosity, you said you were talking about pruning it and moving this tree, is that what you're about to?
I mean, we'd have to have a horticulturist come and take a look at it and do a
Because
recommendation.
you're talking about cranes, I'm not, when I was saying our roads can't handle things like that, I wasn't joking.
Mayor, you wanna just
You know, I don't know what to, well, they
approve
were
everything
talking about, but.
subject
I don't either.
to the
That's
landscape
that's
plan.
something
Well,
that
it may
there's,
change. You know, for example,
That's not my
you have the
forte.
tree, you
No,
probably
I just,
have
I
a
know it's
half-moon
happened and we've done
drive,
roads before.
like you currently have at this house.
Yeah, I mean, you got the driveway and the front.
construction going across the street from my house.
Paul, can I ask you a question?
I can just say before we go.
They're
there,
talking about
No, I
moving,
get it.
they're talking about moving.
I'm trying to think of,
It's not gonna kill the tree.
I'm trying to think of
Tree that age,
avenues,
and really
like
successful.
all the options.
And isn't it, don't you wanna preserve it where it is?
I mean, we kept a lot of the landscaping. We kept
Okay.
everything, you know.
Mrs. Kraft, would you comment?
Well, I just had a question in that they're talking about moving the tree, but the risk of moving the tree, one that old, is it may kill it. If it's not moved, you know, how can you tell if it's gonna be moved successfully? But isn't the idea of preserving the tree, preserving it where it is?
Well, that's, the code doesn't specify that, but it says preserved in natural state. And yes, it can be moved.
Okay.
Well, can we proceed by considering at least part of this application? And perhaps if we get some input from the other commissioners, but hold off on the landscaping and drive.
Yeah, I mean, you can. But if we wanna preserve the trees, are they gonna change any of the land, the house, or would you just keep it?
I wouldn't, I think that we have many options to be able to either transplant the tree or modify the driveway accordingly.
Okay, because I don't think bringing a huge crane on our streets is going to work. I have to reiterate that, like,
Yeah, that would
1,000
be
times.
part of what.
But the risk of killing that tree is great, it seems to me.
I've seen them, honestly, I've seen them moved successfully, but there's aftercare involved in that as well. It has to have a nice aftercare.
What are your thoughts, Carlos, on just changing the drive to preserve that tree?
I think that would
altering the
probably be-
landscape around it?
That could be obviously is a solution that the client would have to make a decision on. There are definitely options that we could definitely look into. Whether transplanting the tree is not going to be an option, then, obviously we have to specifically locate it where the driveway is and see what the impact on the driveway is. it may not be a big impact on the driveway either. But we don't have a specific location for it, so it is something that we're gonna have to fully explore in order for us to be able to determine what we're able to do with this tree,
Yeah.
if it's that important to the town, obviously.
It sounds like it is.
I mean, if we have to keep it, I'm gonna make it beautiful underneath.
Okay, why don't we proceed with
And I'm
that direction? Let's rule on the home, demolition permit, that sort of thing. And let's reserve, judgment on the preserving the tree, perhaps altering the drive and landscaping in the front.
Okay. And Mayor, can I ask her a question
Sure,
about
of
the
course.
tree? I mean, if the tree was left there, and I understand that their concern is, they like the entry feature and the idea of the coming off the road, If the tree were left there, and certainly I wouldn't wanna cut it up to the point where it doesn't look good anymore. I mean, is there an opportunity maybe to trim it so that they can see more of the entrance?
Yeah, I mean, I think once they start delving into the plant material and the transplanting and all that, this tree's gonna get a beautiful trim.
Sure.
They'll do a nice job at the right company. Yeah, it's got beautiful structure to it, it's very architectural. It's just gonna be a little off, but I think that's the beauty of it, and it's an asymmetrical house. I think we could work with the tree, and I'll stick orchids in it. You ever go up to Commodore Road and,
Good idea.
what do you call it, up in, Jupiter?
That'd be beautiful. with
Those
orchids.
trees are,
See what they
the
come
whole
back.
street is full of, everybody's put orchids in those street trees, and it's like you're in heaven. So we'll do something really nice with it.
If we approve this with reservation on the drive and the tree, et cetera, what we just discussed, where does that come back? To the ARPB, back to the commission?
You would make that decision in the motion to be resubmitted to the commission or.
I think it should, in fairness to the applicant, I think it should be expedited. So bring it back directly to the commission. That would be my recommendation.
Perfect. Directly.
So I think we should, unless there's further discussion, we should vote on the land clearing permit, the demolition of the building, the special exception, and then the level 3 architectural site plan, subject to the changes with the October 2nd, 2018 specifications, and excluding the landscaping and driveway design.
Okay, we ready?
Yeah.
Make a motion to recommend approval of the land clearing permit for 3400 Polo Drive.
I'll second it.
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwhite? Mayor Morgan?
Yes.
Motion to recommend approval for 3400 Polo Drive to demolish the existing buildings.
I'll second it.
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwhite?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes.
Motion to recommend approval for the special exception for 3400 Polo Drive for a 30-foot rear setback.
Second?
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwhite?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes.
Motion to recommend approval of level 3 architectural site plan based on the finding that the construction of a 2-story, 7,406 square foot, single-family Bermuda style home with attached garage, pool pavilion meet the minimum intent of the design manual and applicable review standards with the following conditions. We have a new condition 1, that the color palette, roof color, wall color, outrigger, roof tiles, shutters, driveway pavers, and such are to be approved in accordance with the original October 4th, 2018 submittal by the architect and designer. A new condition number 2, that the condition that the site plan as to the driveway and the landscape plan as to the preservation of existing landscaping, including the, what was the specimen, ficus? Ficus tree in the front of the home, is redesigned and brought back for approval at the next commission meeting. And then the renumbered condition 3, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the owner of the property shall prepare and sign a Gulfstream driveway removal permit. And renumbered as condition number 4, any minor modifications in the approved landscaping shall be submitted to the town manager for review and approval. Any major modifications shall be brought back to the ARPB for review and approval prior to commencement of landscaping.
I'll second that.
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
I apologize, I have a quick question, which I meant to ask earlier. The site plan, is that what you call those? I saw a plan that listed all the trees, which ones are being maintained, which ones are being,
Oh, that's a disposition plan.
Yeah.
It's existing tree plan.
the property has, currently, as you walk by on the street, a bunch of orange ribbons on trees. I don't know what those are for, do you know?
The surveyor put them on there. I'm not sure what his intent was, but
So, and there's some substantial, royal palms,
they're staying.
all those are staying. Okay, so those ribbons have nothing to do with, thank you.
I think they were just benchmarks while they were doing their survey. I'm not sure, but those are, I don't have any of that slated to come out.
Thank you, yes.
Okay. Thank you, I forgot this.
We're back on the roll after discussion with Commissioner Lyons.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White? Yes. Commissioner Orthwyne?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
Thank you,
patience.
Thank you, Maureen, for your patience.
All right, let's move on to the town manager's reports. Let's go, we have a number of them. So let's go to the ordinance regarding construction posting time.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I am gonna ask permission if I can, because I have Brian Dietrich in here with me, to talk about a couple of things. And he needs to go meet the contractors. Could we skip to number 3, Place Ocelay Guardhouse?
Sure. So the first report will be on the Plaza Select Guardhouse status.
Yes, so if you remember from our meeting last week, we told you about the mold that we had in there, and we've had a company come in to remove the mold. Actually, Brian is getting ready to go meet a contractor out there to talk about the restoration of the structure. Brian, can you give him an update on the mold removal and the testing that we've recently done?
Yeah, the mold remediation was done, the interior was gutted. But now, once it was gutted, we found a lot of wood rot inside the wall. So now we're going to the next step of getting estimates to rebuild it. We're looking for advice on how to rebuild it, first of all. So we can get 3 contractors to give us a price on the same scope of work. So that's where we stand now. We're meeting one today at 10, one Monday, and we'll need one more estimate.
So that's the status of
All
that.
right, so we're moving forward with that.
Yes.
Getting some bids.
What's
And
the extent of the rebuilding that,
Well,
that's what
the
we're,
chief and I are actually working together because he has a pretty good knowledge of construction. And we're not quite sure, the walls may have to be removed entirely. And at that point,
this will need
you
to.
know,
with the
this
basic
work.
structure,
So we're looking at everything except the roof and the foundation. Yeah, so it's a new, we're
Well,
building a
well,
new.
no, I mean, that's potentially, right?
Yes,
We don't-
yeah, that's what we're looking
we
for,
don't
the
know that yet.
contractor's advice.
That's what we're doing today,
Yeah.
so. And then, secondly, could you just give them an update? I don't think they even really know about the work we're doing down at the end of Old School, and right way with the pressure.
Yeah, 600 and 700 right way, we're having water pressure problems. So we had to bring in the outside company, Line Tech, to run new lines. The main goes down Old School and in. It never made the turn and went up right way. So the lines were galvanized all the way from the corner up to the homes. They've been replaced, we resolved their issue. But we didn't want to go too far because that is a section that will be replaced on the CIP program, so,
Well, what sort of repairs were made?
We had to do a new tap in the road, off the main. Came up new meter and a new service line to the home, which the homeowner is responsible for.
Yeah, so
And
we pay for the work in the road and residents pay for their side. But just wanted to let you know, I mean, anybody talk to you about water pressure issues, I mean, that's what we've been working on for the last couple of weeks. I mean, we got interrupted a little by holidays, but I think we had actually, yesterday, we had actually distributed, potentially, because we didn't know if we were gonna have to shut the water off to, I think it was like 36 homes that would be impacted.
Somebody asked me about that.
Okay, so we sent out the notice, and doing that, knowing that we might not have to, but we didn't want to spring that on people right at the last minute. So, we're not gonna have to do that.
Right. The project's done, they're just cleaning up, patching the road.
And so this was a galvanized connection piece to the water main that goes down Old School.
That used to
The
be a
connection
private,
goes up right way.
I talked to Rita, cause that was a private section, and there was a small home there, I think. So it was a 1-inch service, and now there's a 2-story home that belongs to Duffy. And, it was galvanized, 193 feet line from the corner to their home. So, along that 193 feet, there was definitely a problem. And they were getting 0 water pressure, especially on the second floor.
It's kinda hard to take a shower.
Okay.
I noticed that just. So just try to
Thank you, Brian.
keep,
Okay.
thanks, Brian, so, that's good, yeah.
Okay, we'll move back up to the
Yes, sir.
ordinance regarding construction time.
Okay, and you know, we've been talking about this, I just wanted to give you a status about it. Our town attorney, Mr. Nazaro, is working on that, but since the last time we discussed this, we have discovered that there's another town that's bigger than us, but similar to us, being on the coast. It's in Broward County. It's Lighthouse Point that also has restrictions like we're discussing here. So kind of throwing that in the mix and looking and comparing their code to Palm Beach. But we anticipate we'll probably have something ready for you at the February meeting.
I'm just trying to make something that is very Gulfstream specific. You know, Palm Beach is a lot more comprehensive. Lighthouse Point is very narrow. I mean, it has a 2-year hard date. It's not a sliding scale. It also has increased punitive penalties if it goes over 30 or 60 days, so the daily fine increases. So I'm looking at maybe working within those 2 ordinances to make something that, you know, like I said, best serves the town.
Okay, good. So we'll expect to hear something back next month. Great. Okay, move on to the update on the CIP.
Yeah, the CIP, with respect to, I think we had a good meeting last week. We got some direction, narrowed it down to a greater degree. And so I just wanted to report that next Tuesday, Matthews Engineering, myself, and Brian will be doing an alignment study on the line from Gulfview north. So we'll do that before we get an actual survey of what, you know, what we, where we intend to place it and how. The other thing is that the town has, if you remember, may or may not remember this, that the town used to have a contractor that would come in annually and do a survey of our Australian pines on A1A, because, you know, that's very important to the town. And so, but that person retired, and so we have engaged another company to do that. And I think we're actually getting, for the amount of money that, it's about the same that we were paying the other contractor. And we asked for several bids on this, but it's all under 10,000. But I think we're getting more in the scope of work that he's gonna be doing for us. And so I did have an opportunity to talk to him about these Australian pines and boring underneath them. And so he said, yes, it can be done, and he's pretty sure that as long as we go at least 3 feet under the root ball, that they would be okay. Because, you know, I I didn't know what kind of root ball these Australian pines had, or whether they had a, like a palm tree, and so they're much like other trees, they spread out according to the canopy. So, but you did say cutting through the, you gotta be careful when you cut through the roots, about what you might do to the trees. So those are things that will be taken into consideration. My point is that now I have somebody that is an expert on that and will help counsel, in fact, meet with me and Matthews Engineering about as we move forward with this.
Good. We'll get updated next month on that, hopefully from
Yes.
Matthews. Moving on to the no-through trucks.
Yeah,
Sign.
we have bought the signs. I think they actually have come in, according to the chief, and so we'll be putting those up shortly. And begin to enforce them. Probably we'll start out with warnings.
Excuse me, what did you say? No food trucks?
No.
Through
Well,
trucks.
I don't know, we haven't discussed
Through
food
trucks.
trucks.
Yeah, but that is a good point.
If you'd like for us to discuss food trucks, we can at the next meeting, but no, I said no through trucks, and I'm sorry, I'm not,
But you might, for Ms. Kraft, I don't know whether you're aware of what's going on here, so what are we doing in Bangor?
It's like,
Lakeview, excuse me, thank you. We're putting up signs to say no trucks.
oh, yes,
What kind
so
of
what we're
trucks?
doing is, there are trucks as defined by the state of Florida, and, you might,
Essentially, things that transport property, so you're looking at your construction trucks and commercial
it
trucks.
could even be the landscaping
Just
trucks.
misheard.
Anyway, the reason that we're doing that is because on Lakeview and Banyan, oftentimes we have big trucks that are coming into the core that, with deliverables to construction sites or carrying, big equipment like, dozers and that sort of thing. And they use these small roads, and like Mrs. Orthwine said, our roads can't really carry that weight, and there's not a lot of room to turn. So we're gonna have no-through truck traffic on those roads and make them come into the core on C Road or Gulf View. So they're not interfering with all the people trying to drive past each other.
Through trucks are fine,
Okay,
don't ban food
okay,
trucks.
well,
Okay.
we won't do that.
ARPB remarks regarding construction abandonment.
Yeah, at the last ARPB meeting, which was in December 27th, there was some discussion about lots that have been sitting for a while without any construction on them. One in particular at 533 Middle Road. We do have an ordinance that addresses that sort of thing, but the ordinance that we have really did not contemplate the exact circumstances surrounding this one. And so, surrounding that lot. And so what we're doing, and I have contacted the owner of that lot, very nice guy, and actually I think has a place right over here, part of the year. So we've talked about it. In fact, I'm probably gonna meet with him. He's coming down here, and we're probably gonna meet with he and myself with his landscaper and talk about what we can do to that lot. And, but anyway, back to the ordinance. So, Mr. Mazzaro and I are looking at ways that we can tweak the ordinance so it will apply to all situations that would include this one. So, he's very willing to address it.
Well, right now it's vacant, so what, are you contemplating with, asking they put up some small hedge or something? I'm not sure what you're getting at.
Okay, well, what I'm getting at is it doesn't have any grass on it for one, so
Okay.
sodding, the current ordinance requires it to be, if it has no active permits on it, it needs to be sodded. But what it doesn't do is require it to be irrigated. So why do you ask them to sod the lot and not irrigate? So that's one of the changes we're making. But we need to define better, a little better, it talks about when construction begins. So what happened at that house was they actually pulled a permit to demolish, and they did that. So that permit was done. They never pulled the permit to construct, and so there's language in the ordinance that talks about when construction starts. So we're gonna make it a little more clear. So we'll bring that back to you, but the point is the gentleman that owns that is willing to work with us.
And we're gonna have an ordinance that addresses these abandoned properties or relatively abandoned so that they are irrigated and,
Correct.
And have sod,
Yeah.
sodded with grass, so they look more attractive.
Thank you.
Okay. ARPB meeting will be January 24th at 8:30 a.m. for anyone who wishes to attend that meeting. We go back to Mr. Dunham for the financial report.
Okay, and you've received the report as always in your packet. Ms. Tu added a little more information to it for you. As you can see, it's the second page or third page. But this, the report that's in your packet today represents a quarter of our budget for 18-19.
Okay.
Well, I think this commentary is great, because we're looking at all the numbers, it really doesn't tell you a lot,
Right.
but if you can highlight
And
significant,
we're gonna continue to do that.
that's great. Thank you.
Any other questions on the
I have
financial report?
two questions on.
Of course.
On page 7, for lawn maintenance, it seemed like there was a large increase in the lawn maintenance for the current month.
And I think I asked Ms. Tu the same question before we sent this out, but we had a response to
I
that.
think he was doing a lot of work.
Yes,
I
yes,
saw his trucks around town.
yes.
Yeah, hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commission. I understand that it does look a little disproportionate that our lawn maintenance is so high. There are some costs that are allocated on an annual, right, period that go into lawn maintenance, like white fly, ficus treatments, things like that, kind of get lumped in. We pay it annually. It's a big lump sum at the beginning. We did have some landscaping that we are undertaking to cover up some of the transformers over at Place Au Soleil. We had there was trees that had to be shifted and some ground cover that we paid for because one tree got, I think, hit by lightning, and so there was some other unanticipated expenses in there. However, I believe that our budget, even with these unanticipated expenses, our budget over the entire fiscal year will be fine.
Okay, that's what I was concerned because with the budgeting $12.50 per month, that we were at a point where we wouldn't have enough for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and, you know, at the beginning, when we go through the budget process, we try to think of everything, but sometimes we don't. But we tell you this every year, that there are things that will come up that we have to address that we didn't anticipate. This is really one of them.
Well, you had mentioned a couple of meetings back that you were gonna spend some money on landscaping around.
And one of the places that we've recently done that, and Brian's still here, is at the intersection of Gulfview and A1A. You know, there's so much equipment out there from AT&T, FP&L, and now, what I meant to say to you is that Comcast now has put an electrical cabinet in, so they completed their, you know, they're installing their vaults, but so the next move is to put this electrical cabinet in, and now they can begin to pull the fiber. Because what this does is provide the electricity to the fiber. So that's good news, and they just put that in at Gulfview, and
You raise a good point, though, with all that equipment there on Gulfview at A1A. What is the landscaping plan to try to cover that up?
well, we've installed a couple of, 2 or 3 new seed grapes, right?
Yeah, we did some big sea grapes along A1A, and then Kalusha hedge down the side that will eventually grow and match the club. The club replaced their whole hedge on Gulfview,
Right.
so we just extended it.
And, but with all of that equipment there, we know that the utilities have to come in there, so we've left it kind of a driveway.
There's gotta be a parking spot for
That's
their
right,
vehicles.
they need to get in there, but, the Kalusha will have to grow a little, but it grows fast, but we had to be very careful, because the FPNL said, okay, they drew a big circle and said you gotta do a soft dig. There's so much stuff underground there that we just have to be very careful about where that kind of vegetation goes.
Okay,
I
good.
mean, we don't wanna shut off the lights to the whole town.
Donnie, you had another point?
I believe that it's about 6 items under that on page 7, that it looks like contract for water fund management fees, and looks like it would be a $90,000 deficit, not in the budget.
That's actually, it's a journal entry that I just have to do quarterly or biannually, that I just move money from the water fund and the general fund to kind of pay for the expenses between the two. It's kind of a cost sharing. I just didn't make the journal entry, I'm sorry. I'll do it. Like, as long as it gets done by the.
It's not critical, but I know why you asked the question. because
It
it's a
does
big
look
number and it's
bad.
a big number, and it's a negative.
Right, so I'll get on that, sorry about that. So,
Any other comments on the financial report? If not, Chief Allen, police report?
I request the monthly report be accepted as submitted, no additions to it.
Any questions? If not, we'll accept that. Anything from, sorry?
May I ask
Yes,
you a
Kelly.
question?
Seven
When
C.
you're talking about the landscaping to cover the transformers for Gulfview, I'm waiting to hear that you're going to do something up at Little Club Road and County Road. It's just Cement City up there. Is that in the budget, or is that
Sure,
under
I mean,
discussion?
yeah,
or-
if, absolutely.
Okay,
we'll be doing
I
But you know what, when we meet next week,
yeah,
I'm gonna bring you up to date on a lot of things.
oh, good, okay.
Especially regarding the CIP, because I think you're concerned about it.
Real
I think I'll be able to address that.
Okay, terrific, thank you.
Good. Any other comments, questions? If not, thank you all for coming. Meeting's adjourned.
I sent you